What's good, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Goats of Growth. Please subscribe, rate, and review if you haven't already. And like always, the J. David Group, which is my company, is sponsoring this episode. We help recruit today's go-to-market teams that will lead the next generation of unicorns. Email me, web, at thejdavidgroup.com so I can introduce you to someone who can help. And don't forget, I'm also writing a book called The Goats of Growth, which is the untold stories of the greatest revenue leaders of all time. That is due out by the end of 2023, so please follow me on LinkedIn to learn more about that. Now, my guest today is David Fattel. He's the CTO and founder of Leia, which combines nanotechnology and AI to build the future of 3D experiences. David, welcome to the Goats of Growth.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I don't think I pronounced your last name correctly. Is it Fattal? It's Fattal, right? Is that how it's pronounced? Or?
Fattal is great. That's right. Yes,
Awesome.
like a lethal weapon. Yes.
There you go. Well, hopefully not that bad. Well, thank you for joining me. So let's just start with what I just ended with. Talk to me about Leia and what it is and what compelled you to build it.
So Leia in 2023 is what I would call an experience platform, where we seek to promote literally a new medium, which is an immersive medium, meaning a visual medium through which you can experience depth and textures and lights the same way that you essentially experience the real world. And it takes a combination, I think, as you mentioned in your introduction, of nanotechnology, or there's a hardware component that you need to make a screen special, and there's of course software, what we call an SDK component, which essentially facilitates the creation or the visualization of content on that hardware. So Leia essentially is a company that promotes both the hardware and the software to make these experiences available to everyone.
Got it. And give me a use case. Talk to me about the application that most people, when you say it, will understand.
Yeah. So, for example, right now we're talking through Zoom. Imagine that instead of seeing a flat me, you're seeing a 3D immersive me through the screen, right? Able to make eye contact. Able to see the subtle reflection, the twinkle in my eye, the essentially, everything, my oily forehead, if I if I run here because I was a bit late to the interview, right? So you're getting all of these, I would say, subtleties and the depth that you're used to in a real world conversation when you're face to face, but that is unfortunately missing from a video conference today, right? Thousands of examples, but that's the first one that comes to mind, the personal connection during a call.
And when you and I talked during the pre-interview, one of the things that you highlighted is that you wouldn't need, given what you just said, there's no longer a need for, Oculus glasses or anything, what do they call, like virtual reality? Eyewear, anything like that. Is that correct? It's just I'm looking at you directly, but I'm getting the experience as if you and I are sitting in the same room.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a key, to the technology. We could call it kind of, we want to lower the barrier to the consumption of that type of content. And we think that, having anything on your head is very constraining. And indeed, right. So the essence of our technology is it's compatible with any familiar device. A phone, a tablet, a laptop, a monitor, and as you said correctly, there's nothing that you need to wear. It's just really, really kind of nice experience. You show up in front of the display. The display will kind of see you and display the content in 3D that is relevant to you, as if you were wearing glasses, but except that you're not.
If you reach critical mass, does that mean that you're essentially putting all that eyewear out of making it antiquated, I guess, where we no longer need it across any device or platform?
Yeah, I think I would restate that. I think the two approaches are very complementary. There are benefits in having something on your head, meaning it's full immersion. You're there in 360. You can look up, down, left, right, and so on, and you literally can evolve in a space. This is the Ready Player One experience, where you're literally transported into a new world, right? I think what we're talking about here is more of a window, a portal, right? So you're in front of your computer, or you have your cell phone in your hand, and you can peer in 3D through that window, and you're getting essentially a slice of the 3D experience. But you're still connected with the real world, right? Which is, again, it's less immersive, but it's more connected, right? It's essentially, it doesn't isolate you from people around you. And so again, depending on what you want to do, if what you're into is gaming, I think there are great benefits in being completely immersed in the world and shooting at stuff that is coming. It's full immersion, excellent experience. If you wanna do a 3D chat, like we're doing now, having the encumbrance of putting something on your head and strapping and necessarily when I'm talking to you, I don't really care what's behind me. Then it feels that having that experience on a phone or a tablet is actually going to be much more relevant. Yeah.
Let me zoom back out for a moment. Give me the origin story. How did you come up with this idea? Where were you when you came up with it? Give me the backstory there.
Yeah, so maybe it starts with a personal story, right? So since I was a kid, I was as passionate about physics. I always joke that perhaps unlike other kids, when I grew up, my parents were like, what do you want for Christmas? I would usually ask for a physics book, right? So when I was from a very young age. So yeah, I've always been, passionate of that. Always or life, I never had to kind of worry about what am I going to be when I grow up. I always wanted to be a physicist. So that settled it. I did my PhD on quantum computation. It was already 20 years ago. It was the brand new, really hot stuff, in the early 2000. And I think globally, I think what kind of drives me is to use physics to make seemingly magic for people, and essentially when the technology is advanced enough, of course, there's this famous quote from Arthur C. Clarke, which says, the advanced technology, sufficiently advanced technology indistinguishable from magic, and that's really the type of stuff that drives me. So, I became progressively, working on quantum computing and with light, and became expert in the manipulation of light at the nanoscale. So how light behaves when it interacts with nanostructures, and it can do crazy stuff. Light can go, it can go through walls. It's called the kind of tunnel effect. It can take weird turns and so on. And so it can behave in a way that you really wouldn't expect from your daily experience. I was working in the year 2000 after the PhD. I was working at HP, which was great center, prototyping all kind of ideas in manufacturing nanostructures and how they would interplay with light. And in 2010, I remember having kind of an epiphany, saying, hey, the work that we've been doing, which was done for something completely different. We were studying using light in computer chips. To keep Moore's law going, to keep the power of computer being always able to increase, so that the semiconductor industry can make money, which was also pretty important. But essentially, we realized that this technology could be applied to a new type of display that at the time we called a holographic display, and essentially that became the core of Leia. But I remember one particular incident. So we were just kind of prototyping with this technology, trying to understand how the type of nanostructure we were studying would interfere with light signal. We were in the lab. There was a fire alarm, right? So when it's fire alarm, you need to drop everything and run in the courtyard, so they can count you and they time you. It was so important that piece of I would say of wafer that we were manufacturing, that we were prototyping. I could not leave it, so I literally grabbed it and I ran in the courtyard. And it was a beautiful sunny day. And as I was kind of talking with the colleagues on the parking lot, casually, the sun started to shine on the wafers, and it started to project all kind of myriads of rays, very directional and very interesting. And a crowd gathered and say, oh, what are you working on? And it's super interesting, right? And then we realized that those structures could be used to essentially interfere with light in a way that it would make very directional light rays come out of a flat surface, right? And I don't want to give a kind of lecture in physics here, but this is the fundamental, the basis of a 3D display is essentially being able, for a display to send light in particular direction so that it can target the user's eye and give a different image to the left eye and to the right eye, naturally, right? So
Yeah.
it was kind of serendipitous, and also we saw the interest of people. It probably must have been 50 to 100 people on that parking lot, and just from that moment, we kind of realized, there's something to this. Let's dig deeper.
That is fantastic. That is phenomenal. That's you literally saw the light, right?
They literally saw the light, and then we made it see to other people. That's right. Yeah.
Right. You made other people see the light. So then what was next? In other words, how do you go from that? And of course, being a physicist as well, it's not like you're getting an MBA right there. So how did you go from that to actually building a commercial product and commercializing it and getting it out into a marketplace?
Yeah. So, and you said it correctly. I'm a physicist. I was even almost like an academic at heart. So my personal journey has been, more and more applied, for good or for bad. The parking lot story was 2011. In 2013, we made the cover of Nature with that technology, which, Nature is one of the most prominent scientific journal. It started to attract a lot of attention from big companies. They were contacting HP. They were contacting me personally to see, is there something we can do directly? So again, it was another sign that was going to be important. Starting to talk to HP about, are you willing to fund this internally? And for XYZ reason, it was not going to be possible that year. So we made a proposal to HP to take this off, right? To kind of spin off and to do this on our own. So I was fortunate enough to have a friend in New York from Wall Street who was plugged into the finance circles, and so we basically helped gather the initial funding. There was essentially discussion with HP that they were okay to let us spin off, but they wanted to see initial money in the bank, knowing that they were not going to squander the resource and the IP, and so was lucky enough to have that contact that was much more business savvy than I was to actually help. And so 2013, 14, we created the company officially, moved out of HP, had a very, very nice deal. I think with HP, where we purchased the core IP that had been developed up to that point. And essentially also to this day using their location, which is a prime lab space for nano manufacturing, that we occupy to this day. So we have very cordial relationship with these guys still, right? But that's basically came from So it's having this contact and this friend in the financial circle. On the personal side, my wife is also very business oriented. So she was pushing me to do this. She was like, hey, you spend 9-10 years at HP. I think it's time for you to do your own thing. So I had a lot of encouragement, I would say, right? So I decided that, okay, let's just do this.
By any chance, did you ask the folks at HP to be investors, or are they investors in addition to the money that you alluded to that you raised, or not?
Yeah, so as part of the deal, they have some interest, in case of a liquidity event. Yeah, so but they're not on the cap table.
But then okay, cool. And you own all of the IP.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're fully the initial IP was fully transferred, and we developed a lot of IP. I think the company Leia is also known for its IP in the space. So to date, we have about 850 patents. Starting from 5 from HP. So,
what does Leia mean? Before I forget.
So Leia, if you remember the first Star Wars, right? Right. Yep. So usually when you say Leia, it evokes. So if you're a little bit of a nerd like me, you immediately think the princess calling Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that rings. Okay, that rings hologram, right? So that's where. So it was the name of the project at HP, because Project Leia. And when we created the company, I think that was a beautiful name also. So everybody loved it, and we rolled with it.
Fantastic. So Where are you now in terms of the company, in terms of, I don't know if you want to talk about customers, partners, and then where are you looking to go? What's the vision over the next period of time, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, where do you want to go with this?
Yeah, it's a great question because, so where I left off the story, it was in the basement of HP with a prototype that took up a huge table, right, with lasers and fibers and all kind of stuff, and showing a very small little hologram at the time, right? And this is the premise on which we raised the initial funding. And then if you fast forward to 2023, we now have technologies that can seamlessly integrate to phones, tablets, laptops, and so that was quite remarkable. That it's long, it's hardware, right? So it's been 7-8 years now, but on the scale of display development, display technologies and nanotechnology, it's nothing, right? So we're able to mass produce this nanotechnology that goes into our screen at high yield, in a very kind of efficient process, and that had to be developed, alongside the product, alongside the business, and so on. So today we're in a spot. I think, as you know, today, right, we're announcing a partnership with ZTE. We're going to launch our next generation tablet, which is fantastic flagship product, and running on the latest Qualcomm chip, and it's really come very beautiful consumer product, right? So this technology is now has really got the chance to get in the hands of everybody. And it's the experience is really on par with what you would expect from the big companies, right? But except it came from us as a startup. So I would say that there was a lot of course development that needed to get into this. Fundamentally, our business model, we're not trying to compete with the big companies, with the Apples and the Samsungs and so on. I think our business is to enable OEMs like ZTE and others to adopt our technology, meaning adopt the screen technology and adopt our software and our ecosystem in order to scale faster and in order to make the immersive experience available to as many people as possible in the shortest possible time, right? So our KPIs, right, for the company, other than the usual revenue and so on, right, is essentially how many people can we touch with the technology? How many partners have we signed up? And this is something that we're basically razor focused on, right? So after ZTE, what's the next one, and so on and so forth. In 2019, if you did a bit research, you probably saw we announced also partnership with Continental, and that was for the automotive space, right? Which is interesting for us. Automotive is I don't want to trivialize auto, of course, but from our point of view, is like having a pad on wheels, effectively, right? It's running on Android, and it just happens to be driven or to drive itself. But from the point of view of the infotainment, it's basically like a mobile device, and so our ecosystem is relevant there. So we're trying to build this mobile ecosystem where this application that that we'll talk about. I mentioned the chat. But of course, you can play casual games. You can, create. You can take pictures, share pictures, social, and so on. And all of that, we want them to be shared, across the various platforms. I want to make a call from my phone to my car, and vice versa. I want to be able, to play a game on my pad or my computer. All essentially facilitated by the Leia ecosystem, right? And so, what we're really seeking to do is to I would say reap the most benefit, or really kind of be the leader in that ecosystem without having to of course to spend too much money, because we're a startup, and we have to be very smart. We don't have tens of millions of dollars to put in acquiring content, for example, right? So we need to be able to be smart and to promote that ecosystem, with in the most frugal way. Yeah.
Wow, I have several questions about what you just said. First of all, congratulations on that partnership. That's fantastic with ZTE. I'm trying to think which order I want to ask these questions. Let me just go back to something you just said there. When you say shortest possible time, like get it out to the largest amount of people in the shortest possible time, quantify that for me. What's the shortest possible time for you that you have in your mind in terms of like how quickly you believe you can get this out there to the masses?
Yeah. So maybe the best way to answer this is contrast two scenarios, right? So and this is the kind of strategic discussion that we had a couple of years ago already. We could have chosen to launch our own device, right? And then when you're a startup, you don't have the marketing, you don't have the pool, you don't have the retailer, I would say, contacts and so on, right? But the positive thing about that is that you're controlling end to end, right? You don't have a partner that has an opinion on your ecosystem or how you should do things. So, but it would take longer, right? So you'd have to go for a niche market, and then slowly expand from there, and it would take, I would say, several years, to get to where you want. So when I say we want to reach the maximum number of people in the shortest possible time, I mean exactly what we're doing with ZTE and what we're going to replicate with other OEM, which is they already have a platform, they already have a voice, they already have distribution. And so, with relatively minimum effort, just helping them integrate the technology into their own device, into their own brand, reach, an already established user base, right? And so we're talking this year because, again, we're launching this week. People are going to be able to buy this, both in the US on our website and then the rest of the world, on essentially the ZTE website and their partners. We're pushing, we're announcing, a couple of kind of telcos and so on are going to follow. So this is literally what I mean. Is leveraging a big guy to spread faster, yet remaining in control of the ecosystem. We hope because we have the fundamental technology that enables the experience.
How did you establish the initial relationship with ZTE, and what's to be learned from there as you look to develop other relationships with other partners?
Yeah, so the ZTE partnership is actually interesting, and it's like, if you talk about business and risk and so on. About 2 years ago, we were looking at what to do next, in the company, and I think we took a bet. We said, at the time we had just finished a cell phone project in the US, so we were essentially had the size of our technology was a cell phone, and we wanted to challenge ourselves and say, we had the feedback that having a larger screen would be better for the sense of immersion. And so we decided to get into tablet, which is still mobile, which is still Android, which is still kind of our mandate to be in the to distribute through mobile users. But it's very difficult to get an OEM without showing them a finished product, right? So if you just show a Frankenstein demo, with a bunch of wires everywhere and so on, they're like, can you come back with something clean, right, next year and so on. So we were almost forced to bite the bullet and design essentially a product, on our own. So we essentially initially contacted ZTE to be the manufacturer, so-called the ODM for the product, meaning we essentially designed everything about the product, and we were going to have ZTE manufacture. And 6 months later, when we started to have the first prototypes that were convincing, I think the executive there realized that there was something, and we essentially changed the contact. They say, hey, why don't we flip the model? We'd love to distribute and be your partners, right? So in that case, the risk paid off, right? Because as you know, it's expensive to develop hardware, right? So this was a bet that I think it was reasonably risky. We knew that when people would see it, they'd be interested. It was difficult to say exactly who and when and where, but we had a essentially strong conviction that would be the case. So that worked out. That worked out great.
Wow.
In the future, yeah.
Go ahead, continue. Sorry.
No, I would say in the future, with essentially, now we have the proof point is going to be, and it is today much easier. We can show up with a finished product that looks, great. I mean, even the design is fantastic. Like, actually, I like it as an object, just holding it. I click it everywhere, and it's much easier now to pitch, right? The other OEMs, because they see, from end to finish, including the software, the experience, the design, everything, how it can work together, and so the barrier for adoption is that much lower. Yeah.
How much did you raise up at that point to get it as a working, prototype, I guess, to ZTE?
Yeah. So if you have to count from 2014 when we created the company. Remember the basement of HP, to being a beautiful flagship product at Mobile World Congress. It took quite a lot of funding. So to date, we raised 350 million. The latest round was a debt financing with a fantastic partner, which is Aon, which are kind of just are with us with this journey. And it took quite a lot of investment in the nano manufacturing. We had to set up an entire nano manufacturing line in this case in China, where we have quite a lot of employees. It took us 3 years to ramp up the yield. What you have to understand about displays and nanostructures is you want to manufacture nanostructure on the entire surface of a display without having one defect, right? One speck of dust or something, because display, immediately you see it. Imagine you just have one tiny black pixel. From an engineering point of view, it's like, wow, you get 99.99999% of the pixel there. And from a product point of view, it's like, dude, you have a black pixel. I can't sell it. So it's really quite something, to get to the level of quality that is needed, and it required quite a lot of investment. At the same time, of course, this is building a huge moat, right? Meaning that even if one of the big companies wanted to follow step, so not mentioning the IP, of course, which is one level of protection, but even if you'd want to develop this from scratch, it's just a massive undertaking. You have to kind of control exactly the temperature, the pressure. If there's a 1 degree variation in the temperature in the room of our equipment that day, essentially you can toss the whole batch, to the trash and so on. So this is something that literally you build over years. There's no shortcut, and that we consider to be a massive asset, in terms of know-how for the company today.
I had another question, but you just led me to another question, which was, how many times did that actually happen for you during the development process, where the temperature was, because obviously you experienced that, that's how you know it. So how many times did that actually happen, or not even that, but just the other pitfalls, so to speak, before you actually got it perfect?
Yeah, many times. So I can share now. I can share. Back in the days was not a funny story, but
yeah, right.
Between 2014 and 17, for 3 years, our yield, was zero, flat, right? So. And you're trying to report to investors, hey, it's starting to, no, when it's zero, right? So you want to predict what's next, it's zero. So we failed, many times, right? But of course it gets better, right? So first, get half the display is horrible, and then, get there, and then you get to the point where, hey, it's only a few pixels, maybe it could be good. And then you talk to the customer, and they're like, no, yeah, I mean, it's great. I see the improvement. This is awesome, but no, it's still not good enough. So many times. So it's you kind of have to be from that world, and a lot of people, I think, in the company, came from that manufacturing background, with kind of semiconductor manufacturing experience, where it's understood that you kind of expect that it's going to take some time, and that you're not going to get it right the first time. It takes quite a lot of patience and perseverance. But as I said, this pays off, right? So I mean, with hindsight, of course, when you make it work, it pays off, because anybody else would have to go through the same frustrations before it works.
How much of an investment was made? In other words, you talked about $350 million that you had raised to that point, but how much of an investment did you need to get it to that point?
Yeah, I think we raised the first Series A, in 2014, which was, I think, 25 million. I think with that we were able to get the fundamental equipment right in place. So we have a prototyping line. We are kind of center in California, in Palo Alto, and then we have a manufacturing line, which is called a nano imprint tool, and that we have in China. So I think with the initial investment, I think we got the tools in place, but then it's really about the process development. So you need to pay quite a lot of people to go over cycles of development. We have an optical design team in Silicon Valley, which is not cheap, but where you get wonderful talents, and and then going through the process and the feedback round, right? So you have a design, you prototype, then prototyping it in Palo Alto is not going to give you the same result as manufacturing it in China. So we have the luxury, because we have all that equipment. I think it's fairly unique. We can go through all this loop, including exactly how it's going to look like in manufacturing, and then feedback to design, and then repeat. So that was the expensive part that took many years, how to get it to 99% and so on. Is of the quality and of the experience. Was essentially financing that feedback that feedback loop. Yeah.
How much of I don't know if the word is bottleneck or challenge is the integration part, right? In other words, you talked about ZTE, but as you start to add other OEMs, what is I would imagine that's got to be pretty complex as well, right? In terms of the human capital, frankly, needed and expertise, because especially when it comes to scaling that. So tell me a little bit about that and how you're going to manage that.
Yeah, correct. So it is our core business to make it as seamless and as frictionless as possible. This being said, I think it is it is new technology. So it's when we deal with a new OEM that has never experienced the technology, of course, the form factor is a little bit different, right? You're adding a layer. I mean, nothing is free. There's no free lunch, so you're adding a little bit of layer. There's are you good with the? Yeah.
I'm sorry, you froze there a little bit, but you're good.
Okay. So I think what I was saying is, I think. Let's see. So I forgot what we're talking about.
The integration, in other words, how the
Yep. Yeah, correct. So we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. But I was saying, when you haven't experienced the technology, things are always a little bit different. A great feature of our technology that I should have mentioned from the beginning is that it's switching from 2D to 3D. So what you have to understand is, when you have a 3D immersive display, you need to dedicate some of the pixels are gonna be shot at the left eye, and then the other set of pixels are gonna be shot at the right eye. So fundamentally, you're altering the resolution of the display. In 3D, you're gonna have less, and therefore, it's important that you can turn that effect off, so that you can get all the performance of your display in 2D. When I'm doing an email or I'm browsing the internet, I don't need a 3D hologram, right? So that part, is a small change. Requires some tweaks in the display. Obviously, you need to be able to kind of turn one mode or the other, and so on. But we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. And frankly, depending on the maturity of the team on the other side, it could be a seamless experience. I think with ZT was actually surprisingly easy, right? But if you have less sophisticated partners, then it can become a little bit more daunting. Taking too many resources, frankly, on our side to make it work. Similarly with the content, right? So our strategy for content integration is that we publish an SDK, software developers kit. And the concept of an SDK is that you're a game developer, or you're a partner, like maybe a video conference company, and you're supposed to be able to take the SDK, go to our website, look at the documentation, and port your experience. Maybe you use Unity, or you use Unreal Engine, or you have maybe a side-by-side type of 3D content like you have in the movie theater. And with our tools, you're able to directly make content work, right? And maybe 70% of the time that's the case, where people just take the SDK and run and create awesome content for our platform. And then if you're sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes people kind of still need kind of more hand holding and so on, and sometimes they're important partners, and so then we have to spend more time than we wish in order to help this guy. So again, I think it's fundamentally, this is where we need, this is one of the core metric for our business, is how do we make the integration, both of the hardware and the software, a completely frictionless experience, so that we don't have to spend too much time on our end to handhold.
And going to the content for a moment, how are you going to I guess procure the content? You talk about SDK, but how do you get that word out there? Is it through the partnerships that you have, or is it through another channel that you're going to have to sort of
yeah This is a great question, because content is expensive, right? And so we made again a conscious decision to go with the mobile ecosystem, precisely because there's a lot of what we call crowdsourced or user generated content. So we're trying to focus on those applications that require little investment, in terms of acquiring content. Therefore, we have a 3D camera on the device, so you can take beautiful 3D pictures, and then you can share them across a social network that we call LeiaPix. That is, also that we develop, and you can comment, and we foster a community of people. So that content is great because the incremental cost of having one more picture, it costs zero, right? And then it's the more people start to take picture and interact, and the more vibrant the ecosystem, and the more people it kind of attracts. We have another one, really star app, I would say, on the device that has to do with generative AI. And so maybe if you try to understand the 3D creation process, right? So the core mission of the company, as I said, was to make the 3D immersive content available to all. But I think we want to go further. We want to make the 3D content creation available to all, right? And it so happens that in 2023, there's a wonderful technology, which is the AI, generative AI technology, which essentially anything you can dream of. You want to say, hey, I want a red tractor in a field of bananas, okay, and I want it in 3D. Well, we can do that, right? So you'll be surprised. On the pad, you can take an app we call Leia Dream, which was developed in partnership with Stability AI, which is one of the main platform for this generative AI for images. And you can just do that. You can talk to your pad, and you can say, I want the red tractor in a field of bananas in 3D, and then you're gonna get there, right? And then you're gonna be able to share it on the same platforms, and participate in that community. So that's how we approach content, right? From a user generation point of view, or even from an AI generation point of view, which again costs a little bit of an initial. Obviously, you need to develop the app and the technology and so on. Maybe run a couple servers, but it's much cheaper than acquiring one more game or acquiring one more movie, right? So this being said, we also, of course, in our marketing budget, we have invested in minimum also, I would say, tier 1 content. So we're licensing the entire 3D library of movies from Warner Brothers and Universal, which is also available, as a kind of streaming app on the device. And there's going to be a healthy collection of games, but the goal is not to acquire more games at all costs, because again, as I mentioned, this is not a scalable model. I think it's more to incite people to create and to share their content. Yeah.
So if I had the ability, which I do not, I could get a SDK and a software development kit, and let's say, for instance, create an immersive game, if you will, a 3D game, and then distribute it through your through your devices, through your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a dedicated app store for this, also available on the device. So it's exactly like you said. The SDK allows you to create a new game, but more important than that, it allows you in no time to repurpose a game that you already have, right? So if you're a gaming studios, you more likely you're using Unity or Unreal, or you might be using your own rendering engine. That happens too, but you're going to use a non 3D creation tool. You can take an already existing game and convert it very easily, right, to the platform. And as you said, you can then put it on our app store and distribute. You can fix your own price and so on and so forth. And then we essentially distribute content, in the same model that the Google Play or kind of iOS app store would do.
After we are done doing this episode, if I can have someone from your team email me the links to all of the places where we can find some of these things. As you're talking, I'm sitting here trying to Google like LeiaPix and all this other stuff. So that would be really good for, I think, the listeners to be able to go to. So let's definitely make sure we do that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we even went beyond just the device. So these generative AI creation tools are actually so powerful that we started to realize that people would use them even outside of our hardware. So for example, we have and we've invested quite a lot of time and energy in developing a technology to convert 2D images and videos to 3D, right? And the reason we do that very well is because I mentioned we have that social network where people upload 3D pictures. So we have access to a very unique and very large data set of beautiful 3D pictures that are relevant for mobile users. You know how universities and research institutions have these data sets for 3D? You know, a lot of them are for self-driving cars, or there may be people taking pictures on their university campus or so on. So they're not that varied. But with us, those are pictures that were taken by people in the field, you know, using our devices, you know, over the different times. So it's food, it's people, it's pets, it's the stuff that people actually want to see. So we have this unique data set that we use to train neural networks, you know, which are essentially the power, you know, kind of the technical word behind the AI, how AI is working. And we train these neural networks with very unique data and get very unique results. So I think today we have access to a unique and probably the best 2D to 3D conversion technology, which is great because any content, you know, from YouTube or maybe an old picture of yours, you know, can be experienced in 3D on our devices. So that's the reason why we invested in this initially. But you can also experience it, you know, on the web. You know, I can generate a depth map. You know, once I have a depth map, I can start changing the perspective, and I can start doing what we call the depth animation on the image, and it looks super cool. And then you can share it on Instagram or companies, you know, media companies can use them for effect. And definitely we would share with you. I think after the call, you know, we have an app called Leia Pix Converter, which is just a website where you literally drag a 2D picture and it turns it into, it kind of breathes life into it. It kind of animates it all on its own, and it's been quite successful, I think, in the last couple months. So this is where I think you know, you see the value of and the hard work that was put, you know, into developing this tool is actually paying off, you know, beyond our initial hopes, which were, you know, we knew it was going to be relevant for our devices, but people seem to respond really well to them also outside of our traditional hardware ecosystem.
As you were describing all that, just two more applications came to mind for me, and I'm wondering if my hunch is correct or if you've thought about it, which I'm sure you have, I guess. But for instance, like just Google Earth or Google Maps, when you are, you know, when that Google car is driving around and taking pictures of everything, and now that can be not just 2D but 3D, giving your technology. Am I right? And even also like real estate, you know, agents, I guess, if you will, to show homes and landscapes and stuff, right? Drones.
Yeah, absolutely. So maps. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So maps are a big one, especially in automotive. So we work with Continental, and then, you know, the maps are definitely, you know, high on the list. Google has a wonderful technology where they make available a lot of you know, the maps in 3D, I think, as you mentioned, and the content looks great, you know, on a display. It's a beautiful example again where, yeah, we can use, you know, an existing 3D content that is out there, and then just with a little bit of SDK magic, you know, make it compatible with the display, and that works well. Real estate, you know, as well. I think you know, there's so many applications, to be honest, right? So if you look at B2B now, you know, there's, you know, medical and education and this and that. It's great. It's also a curse because it tends to pull you in all kind of directions. I think the company, you know, we had a foray into B2B, I think 2 years ago, where we tried different things, you know, from hospitality to healthcare to public sector and so on. It was just too much to chew. And I think since then we refocused and really, you know, tried to go more kind of consumer, where I think I repeat the power of the user generated content, you know, gives you a lot of content for free, and gives you that kind of healthy, positive feedback ecosystem effect where people talk about it and create more content, and that brings more people to the platform, as opposed to having to create a special app or special content, you know, for that medical company or that real estate company. So that was the learning that we went through.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, for sure. One more question, then I want to get into the rapid fire 5, where I ask you 5 questions, you give me 5 quick answers. But the last question is, you know, as we talked about a little earlier, you're a physicist, and certainly not, you know, a traditional, you know, you didn't have a traditional entrepreneurial background to upbringing, to your own acknowledgement. Obviously, you've learned a lot about business and about, developing partnerships and scaling to the masses. How have you learned that? In other words, is there a person that you hired on your team that has helped you with that? Is there outside counsel or mentors that are helping you think through all these things? Just give me a sense of from the business aspect of it, where you've been able to pick up a lot of this and execute the way that you have.
Yeah, so definitely my co-founder, who had the finance background, I think, was especially in the beginning, was key, right? And he was handling more of the business tasks. We have also advisors to the company. Several people. One of them mentioned is Pierre Lamont, who was a long time ago the CEO of National Semiconductor. Went through all the semiconductor development, of Silicon Valley. Worked in, Sequoia and Koshla and others and so on. So a lot of experience. And so he had definitely, a lot of wisdom, and, we I think we meet with him regularly. So, this, I think from the investor network. Recently though, I did mention we raised $350 million. It was getting, probably too big for, my personal expertise. And up to last October, I was actually CEO of the company. So trying to jungle, all of the CEO job, but still also being deeply involved in the technical aspect. So I was pretty much having two jobs, and it was just too much. So I think, as you probably saw, the ultimate, I would say, recourse, that we had was to bring in somebody with much bigger expertise. We essentially hired Cecilia Quist, who's currently our CEO, and who's kind of bringing so much to the company already. Kind of professional, adult supervision, and let me focus on the product development. But to go back to your original point, it was just learn the hard way. It was, hey, this is the state of the technology. Let's go talk to the carriers. Let's go talk to the OEMs. Let's get the feedback. Try to understand. Everybody's smiling at you, say how wonderful you are, but then the money is not there yet. So okay, try to understand what do we need to improve. Where do we need to focus on? And it was learned. It was just learned the hard way. Through the experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Love it. Great story. Great story. Thanks for sharing. All right. You ready for the rapid fire 5?
Yes, let's go.
All right. Question 1. What motivates you?
Yeah, I think it's the making magic with physics. I think it's every morning I get up saying, hey, what ideas do we have to make people, eyes go wow, through the use of physics and through the use of technology. That's my personal motivation, if I have to be honest. Yes.
That's the first time and probably the last time I'll have that as an answer to that question. So that's fantastic. Name a big goal you have right now, and when you would like to accomplish it.
Yeah, definitely sign up, one more big, OEM, right? Before the end of the year. Yeah. Major platform to accelerate our distribution.
What's your most preferred way to learn new information to stay sharp?
Maybe I'm ashamed of admitting it, but it's social media. I have a fairly wide network of people, and I find that they would alert me to any news that's relevant to me before I even kind of open just a journal or anything. So I actually, for good or for bad, I get most of my information through my friends on social media.
Real time, certainly not like a book.
Real time. Yeah, that's right.
That's right. You're not going to miss anything. How many hours of sleep do you average per night?
Maybe 5 to 6. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do when you aren't working?
Some outdoor activities. I think in the winter, snowboarding, with family, and in the summer, it's playing beach volleyball on the beautiful beaches of California.
Beautiful, love it. So I'm going to ask you to think of a question that you would like for me to ask my next guest. Could be any question. One guest asked, what's your walk-up music? Like, for instance, when somebody's playing baseball and they have this walk-up music, it could be that. It could be, somebody else asked, if you were to buy a sports franchise, which franchise would it be and why? So it could basically be anything. It could be business related. So what question would you like for me to ask my next guest? And then I'm going to ask you the question that my last guest wanted me to ask you.
Sounds good. So how about what did they want to be when they were kids, when they grow up, and how did that turn out?
What did they want to be when they were kids? What did they want to be when they grew up when they were kids, and how did that turn out? Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. For me, that's a painful thought because I wanted to be an NBA player, and I felt very
here we go.
short.
High bar.
Yeah, that's right. High bar for sure. So the question that the last guest wanted me to ask is, this is interesting actually, because you're not going to be able to answer this one, but it says, what profession would you want to be if it wasn't in sales? Because typically I have sales leader, but I'll ask you this, right? Let's just spin that around. What profession, and I know obviously you were born to do this given your backstory, but if you weren't a physicist, what other profession would you have chosen?
I would have loved to be a professional dancer. I took up dance when I was 30-year-old, and pretty aggressively. My style is that I get one thing and I try to do it well. So, I would have loved to start, as a kid and have a career in dance. But again, I think the ship has sailed.
But maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not.
That's right. Mine has sailed for sure. Yours, you could probably still do it. Well, David Patel, one last question, of course, which is how can folks reach out to you, get in contact, find out more about Leia? Just give you a sense of how folks should get in touch with you to say thank you, ask you questions, or participate in some way.
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on LinkedIn. This is and that dates me. I'm not on the more recent ones, but I use LinkedIn quite extensively, especially for a kind of professional kind of interaction. I think my last name is easy to remember. Is Fatal with 2 T's, right? And so you can find me there, the CTO of Leia. So you can drop me a line there. And otherwise, I think traditional. You can find me on other social media. The firm will probably share also contacts about how if you want to get more information about the product that we're about to launch and how to get to pre-orders and so on and so forth. If you're interested, I'm sure we'll be able to publish all the information.
Fantastic. And the good news is that my audience is primarily cultivated on LinkedIn. So that's where
I would assume so. Yeah.
That's right. David Fatal, thank you for going and joining, actually, I should say, the Goats of Growth.
Thank you for having me, Jay.
Goodbye, everybody. I am cueing the music.